Hi, it's Michelle from Movement Lesson, and we've got a new podcast. It's all about movement. I'm here with Scott Davies. He's one of my
Hi.
practitioners, and he's also amazing. And we're going to spend this first podcast telling you about a bit about ourselves, and our great friendship, and why we want to talk about movement and different ways. I know we're both known more so for the Munchkins, but everybody needs help with movement. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks very much. I think it's great just to have this first episode. I know we've talked about it for the best part of about 6 or 7 months. So it's great that we're finally able to get it up and running. Really excited, really looking forward to getting down regularly and having chats with you. And anyone who's watching or listening will notice that for me, I'll end up just being lost in a lot of what you say. I love it when we get together and have our chats, and I think they're great just for the insight and making me think about different things as well. So I know that I'm going to be a fan of listening. I know several of the families I work with have said that they're quite looking forward to it and have been asking me, when are you and Michelle starting the podcast? So yeah, really looking forward to getting this off the ground and running. So I suppose that's, what is movement lesson, I suppose, is the first thing that we should go to.
Movement Lesson was created back in 2009. Um, the true story is my child got very sick when he was 13 months old. They said he would never walk or talk again. And when he was diagnosed, please don't take this the wrong way, guys. This was a diagnosis back in the day. My son was diagnosed as mentally retarded when he was 4 years old. They we're reviewing him for school. It's now cognitive impairment. I know it has changed, but it is. I'm saying this because hopefully it puts a wrench in your gut, because it put a wrench in mine. But that was the catalyst that I finally needed. And I said, y'all need to leave. I'm going to get my son back. And from that, again, I started doing tons of different types of training and created Movement Lesson. But just because I put a name on the door, that's not the real catalyst. The catalyst, again, is being a mom with a special son, and two boys that I was working with, but also in my trainings and such, I was reading a book on Einstein to the boys, and they mentioned the space shuttle. The space shuttle is iconic for me. I'm 60 years old, or 59, and I grew up with the shuttle. It just means a lot to me. The big white ship, and I'm explaining this. I'm very visual how it rotated. Like, the rotation on the shuttle is just so obvious. And I went to bed that night and I said, "Oh my God, it can't be that simple." It didn't matter what I was working on: autism, cerebral palsy, CDKL5, SMA, stroke, Parkinson's. I can go on and on. Any person that has been diagnosed where they needs or help with movement has issues presenting with rotation. It really was that simple. So, and I always naturally touch with rotation. That's why I was getting different results, I would say, than my colleagues. And people were starting to say, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I was in the same class." And all that has been born. So since then, authored, published. I have the largest library of working with the human body. Now Scott's on my tail to be working on as well, and we're collaborating with the podcasts. And here we go.
And I mean, the concept of rotation for me is like it's like the Matrix, and do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? And after starting the training, and I remember being at home and looking out the window and just seeing a load of leaves on the trees, and suddenly noticing that everything was rotating, and like the world's spinning, the earth is spinning and rotating around. So like it's so important, and you then suddenly start seeing it. And then like January, for me, can be a nightmare, because you take the kids to the park and you've got all these people that are coming out, and suddenly they've got New Year's resolutions and they start running, and they're running and they're like, "Oh my God, why are you running like that? How are you getting out of bed in the morning?" Because there's such a lack of rotation and weight and all these little things, and you really just start noticing rotation everywhere. And I suppose, like, I should sort of mention the fact that for you it was all around Graham, and Graham started you off same for me. My introduction to movement lesson came from my daughter, and she was born at 25 weeks. We spent 9 months in hospital with her. She's cerebral palsy. I was a teacher, a sports lecturer, and a football coach at the time, and my background was all sort of like learner centered, and everything being like very learner focused, and we come out of hospital and you're a little bit lost and you don't quite know where to turn, and we came across movement lesson, and brought my daughter down to be one of demonstrations for a session, and it was just one of them, like, wow, like this really ties in with my approach and my philosophy for how people should be taken care of, and obviously having conversations with you, and you saying, you've got that, the anatomy and physiology, you understand how people learn, you've got the motor learning understanding, you've got the empathy as a parent. So you know go away and have a think about doing this to help other families, and that's essentially where I came from. And it's seeing that and coming from that sort of like sports culture, and having the movement broken down, I think's been such an eye-opening experience for me. Just the such like minute things that we have to go through to be able to actually make movement, and the important role that movement plays in cognitive development. I think it's huge.
It is huge. It's something as simple as like a deck of cards. You can't play it if you're missing a card. And so when there's one movement that gets impaired or doesn't initiate, the game is off. It's just that simple. And we call it fatigue and stress and getting old, and we can go on and on and on. Or the child has damage to the cognitive, and therefore, change the brain, change. No, if you don't change the movement, the brain doesn't change. And also too, like, guys, listen to this podcast, because this podcast is the paradigm shift. In the 14th century, up until then, everything was 2D, and someone invented perspective. And since then, the world's changed. We went into to forging, using metals, transportation, all of that changed just because of going into a three-dimensional drawing. And now we're going into rotational. So, like you said, from the universe on, if it doesn't rotate, you cannot produce life. It's just that simple. For a plant to a cow to and you're going to go, where is it? Where is it? That's where you ask the questions. But I'm telling you, like Scott said, you'll start seeing it everywhere, from that sunflower opening up and closing again, and then going around the sun. The moon doesn't rotate, so there's no life. Yes, it's lunar locked, but there's no core rotation. And you'll start to see all these variations. We'll be talking about space exploration to footballers. By the way, Scott in our world means soccer, but it doesn't matter. It's a ball. And again, what does a ball do? It rotates. And so all major sports are paid off of a rotational object, and we have to rotate around that object, just like we rotate around the sun and we rotate around the earth. And you'll just start seeing these small little things to big things. But you'll also complain that if you've had a stroke, what's a major complaint? I can't hold my spoon. That's rotation. I can't open the door. That's rotation. I can't take the top off my toothpaste. That's rotation. You might say the same thing. My child can't get dressed. That's rotation. You'll start to see it everywhere. We acknowledge the CP, we acknowledge the autism, we acknowledge the genetic, whatever might have happened. But if you think you're plateauing from the Olympics to anything, you're plateauing for whatever reason, because that rotation either been injured or can initiate in that kind of sequence of events that you're looking for.
And so it's rotation is a key foundation that we look for with every new client, every video that we do, and we've done quite a bit of analysis, and We've got the Movement Lesson Sports Academy to look at how elite performers are moving as well, and you can see it with that. And for me, it's kind of like, well, why should we look at elite performers? Well, we go back to Oscar Wilde, like you shoot for the moon because at the very least you're going to fall amongst the stars, right? So let's try and move like elite performers and look for how they move, and if they're moving efficiently and effectively, can we look to recreate that? And with so many people, not just children with additional needs, but office workers. We're getting more and more sedentary within our lifestyles. So we get so many people who can benefit from and have glitches in movement, who can benefit from sessions where we promote more rotation. But movement lessons more about just rotation. That's it. That's a key foundation principle, really, Michelle. Right? But we're looking through weight transfer and counterbalance and counter rotation, all key. What other principles would you like to introduce right now?
So for just to explain too, first of all, when you're using rotation, you get a functional movement. So with functional movement, again, where I can rotate my hand, I can feed my face, I can comb my hair. I need all of that to get out of bed. I need to rotate. Now I can stick out my arm all day long. And this is where the biggest misconception and why people quit the gym and then lose all their gains in 3 days, because you're doing linear movements like this. And yes, you will show increased muscle mass, but it's not a functional movement. So like, what do I mean by that? Like right now I'm sticking out my arm. I can't feed my face. I can't do anything with it. I'm capable of doing this, and it might be a test or test in range of motion. But again, it doesn't matter if you can't get out of bed and you can't get out of the car. Who cares what your range of motion is? They really don't have to go with each other. And so when you have rotation, all these movements come into play. My big interest is astronauts. The first thing they lose, the second they leave atmospheres, they lose all rotational movements. So it's not that they come back with muscle atrophy, that they have no organization of rotation. And to do that, they have to pose gravity. So we're going to be covering so much here. So for you little nerdies and so forth, this is a great place to be, as well as a parent that's just going like, oh, this is what my child's going through. Or I've just, like, or me, I just mentioned I'm turning 60 this year. I'm anti-aging with it. I practice what I preach, Scott does. He practices on his kids, but he practices on himself. And so we're just going to be covering it all.
And I think that's it. It's who who is movement lesson for, and I've had it, and sort of like even my dad when I was my partner last year was doing some fundraising for our daughter, and she did the Leeds Marathon, and she started running, and she was having issues with her knees. We did some movement lesson, and she was then went out. Yeah, my knees a lot better, but I'm having issues with the hips. Okay, well we did some more, and she came back in a few weeks later, and now I've got a back issue. And my dad sort of said, well, like what's Scott doing though? Like what you really need to do is go and see a physio and get a sports massage. And she was like, no, I'm getting movement lesson, and movement lessons helping. And Dad's like, I thought that was just for kids. And I'm like, we've been doing it now, Dad, for 5 years and telling you about this. It's not just for children with additional needs. I've got weekend warriors that I'm seeing regularly. I've got some of the parents of some of the children that we work on. I've got people suffering from looking at stroke recovery, people who've had knee replacements, people who've had carpal tunnel syndrome and got issues with the wrist, people who've just broken the wrist and had it replated. They're all adults of
And people who
different.
don't even need to get those things because they're doing the preventative.
Yeah, that's it for me. Like movement lesson. It's habilitation. It's learning new skills for kids with additional needs who've never been able to move in any way whatsoever. But it's also rehab for people who've had injuries and had operations. But more importantly, yeah, it's prehab. Like let's keep movement lesson as part of your conditioning program. Let's think about it so that you can go out for a run, or you can start a New Year's resolution. You can look. You can be a teenager looking to take the next step into competitive sports. This is what's gonna help you make your movement more effective to reduce your injury risk, because your body suddenly doesn't have to compensate the same, which is going to increase the injury risk. So like movement lesson is for everyone.
Yeah, because it's the way you need to move. It really, if you, once you learn it, learn, easy, weight transfer, transitional skills, rotation. Every new movement has to origin from that. If you want it to be functional, if you want to survive off that skill, you need those skills. There's just, that's simple. Anyone that's having problems, then that's, where's your problem? Is it in weight transfer? Is it in the ability to transition? Transition means, like, say, from the bed to the standing, or do they have issues with rotation? So it's really easy to break down. But again, most people look for the diagnosis first, and then they think about what the movement might do to them. And it really should be the other way around. I realize that sometimes getting a diagnosis is very important, and it is because, again, we're not cardiologists, but guess what? Your heart is helical. It's a rotational object. It's not, we were taught in school that it's your upper changers and lower changers, but actually, if you look it up, you can unroll a heart like a rose, and it just unravels, and then it rolls back up, and that's how it functions and moves. It's all based off of rotation. There's no straight line in the human body. We're not linear. So there's going to be lots of different ways that you can attach into this, from functional anatomy all the way down to working with a very specific issue.
And I think we should just point out as well, we're going to be covering a lot of information in this podcast. And for anyone who's not come across Movement Lesson before, I mean, Michelle's got a vast resource of information and videos and training, and that's all available online. That's just phenomenal. But any diagnosis needs to come from a healthcare professional. So we're going to give you indicators towards problems that we're identifying it, but it's about the movement. And we can have two children with the same diagnosis present with different movement issues, and we can have two people with different diagnoses present with pretty much the same movement issues. But to get and a lot of parents sort of come and say, is it CP? Is it this? And like, we need to be clear that we're giving you indications that something's not right. You need to go and consult a healthcare professional and get like a formal diagnosis. We can't provide that formal diagnosis, but what we can do is give you the information so that you know what to look for. And sometimes I've had a few chats with parents recently where it's kind of like helping maybe put their mind at ease a little bit, but they're like, well, what is it? Why have we got then? And there can be lots of different reasons in the early stages of development that maybe a child ends up with. Problems with their movement, and it could be reflux can be a big issue. It doesn't necessarily have to be a genetic or neurological condition that affects movement. It could be children who needed an operation early on, and suddenly they spent longer in hospital and on the back, and then they've not been able to move, and movement has the links with the brain growth, and that's what's so important, is the neural mapping that comes from movement. And if kids are missing that, then there is going to be glitches. If kids skip milestones, there's going to be glitches perhaps when they get into the classroom. And there's a lot of different factors that can cause movement issues. We can tell you essentially that there is glitches and there is problems, and then what to look for, and then you can go away and get that formal diagnosis from the healthcare professionals, and obviously then can look at getting some other formal support if required as well.
Yeah, I look at
And
the diagnosis like needing, like wanting a footballer or ballerina. Those are all serious goals. Tiger Woods, we'll pick on him, because I want to work on him desperately. I've always wanted to work on him because he really lacks rotational abilities. Poor guy. He shouldn't be in the pain that he's in. So when you're looking at all of that, and again, why is Tiger Woods 1 in a million? When it was raining, where did you find him? When it was snowing, where did you find him? When it was windy out, where did you find him? He wasn't sitting on the couch. If anyone gets an A for effort, I mean, of all the people in the world, he's up there with Elon Musk as far as dedication, time, concentration, and that was it. But when you're dealing with wanting, let's say, a professional athlete, obviously they're not going to be one when they're 6 months old, but you're going to act now like you're going to have one. Act now like you want that person. I want your child to grow up and say, I don't care to do that versus I can't. And when I hear too people say, oh, but my child's fine, are they clumsy? Well, yeah, kind of, can they draw well? Are they good at writing? Are they, where is this expanding to? But at the same time, too, there's really no difference that you were told that your child is at risk for cerebral palsy. Again, we're not here to diagnose. Scott and I have probably the most two medically complex kiddos out there. And we are the first people in the world that says doctors that way. And we work well with a lot of our doctors in our area. But I like to say there's a medical and there's a movement. But guys, please don't get consumed in the what ifs and you're not attaining to the movement basis. Movement and medical need to go hand in hand. And so if someone, let's say, is saying your child's at a risk, let's say for autism or cerebral palsy, I say act like you have it. And then in 2 years from now or whatever, you don't because you've been doing this, this, and this. Great. You've knocked it out of the park. But
Yeah.
Cerebral palsy is not diagnosed typically till about the age of 2. That's the average age. Autism is about 3 to 6 now, where it's being diagnosed. Like, don't wait for the boat to sail. And at the same time, too, all of a sudden you're going, hey, let's get my kid into the little gym or pre-karate and all those kind of things. When I did the Chuck Norris system and I kept saying, like, there was some kids that, let's say, couldn't do a thrust kick. And I'm like, they didn't crawl. And so they're like, what do you mean he didn't crawl? He's 7 years old. Who cares if he crawls? Well, he can't do a thrust kick because he didn't do a push off and a crawl. Those movements show up all throughout our lives. Getting off the floor when you're 85. If you've crawled, you can get up a lot better than you could if you didn't. So it all is connected. It really is. And we're going to take you through all of it.
And like I suppose it's important to sort of bring up the fact as well that we're in the UK and it's obviously a different system. So what we're actually finding over here, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, Michelle. But I work at brilliant Blue Skies Ahead. It's a neuro rehab centre just outside Liverpool that offers a wide range of different modalities. And when so you first mentioned to me about working with different families and looking at doing this but future, and I went back and had a chat with them, and Sam who runs centre was like, oh yeah, that'd be brilliant. We saw Michelle, and obviously they were quite directing us to take Quinn to see you in the first place. And she looked at it and said, like, oh yeah, we can get you in to see some of our families. It'd be brilliant. But what we've found recently, and what me and Sam were having chats is about, we're getting a lot more or a lot earlier diagnosis of cerebral palsy coming through the doors. There's a lot of babies and a lot of children who are maybe like between 12 and 18 months that have recently been CP. And for us, we almost had to fight to get a CP diagnosis. We had to keep going back and challenging it. And I know, like, a lot of families get told, oh, you got to wait for a formal diagnosis till 2 or 3. I don't know why. In the UK, over the last sort of like 6 to 12 months, that seems to have changed, and we seem to be getting earlier and earlier diagnosis. I don't know if that's something you've seen in the US as well, or that's something that you've got any thoughts on.
Well, there's two things with cerebral palsy. First of all, if you have an abnormal MRI, that is cerebral palsy. It can really happen at any age. It used to be just with birth trauma. But the biggest misconception is, well, I didn't have any birth trauma. And I'm like, well, you could have had a stroke in utero. You really don't know that, it's not always where you get the billboard saying this happened, so therefore this is about to happen. But the other problem is with cerebral palsy, even if you get the diagnosis, then nobody knows where they're at. So depending on different forms of evaluation techniques, you can have anything from a low tone cerebral palsy, high tone, mixed tone. Or we don't know if your child will milestone or not. I mean, I actually had one client that said, your child has cerebral palsy and epilepsy, go look it up on Google or YouTube. And the video is actually out there. And I gave Mason a lesson when he was 5.5 months old. And I said, I understand your concerns. This isn't cerebral palsy. And they're like, yes, it is. This is what was told. They read the MRI wrong, and it was actually a tumor in his brain. They read it as a stroke in utero. and they didn't find the tumor then until he was 2, even though I kept saying, go back. And so, and he had to have a hemispherectomy when he was 8 and lost half of his cerebellum because the seizures were going to take him out. Again, guys, these are worst case scenarios. Unfortunately, Scott and I have seen it. We're not here to be Debbie Downers. We're here to say this is also what's happening to our kids. I will say, even though with cerebral palsy, the severity of the kids is increasing tremendously. I actually am putting out I've been saying that within 10 years, every family will have a child with special needs. Because it's just whatever is going on, it's collapsing. We can go into a lot of things about what's causing it, but we've got to catch it. So even if we're catching cerebral palsy earlier, at the same time too, what are we doing about it? And just because you have a diagnosis, guys, please don't give up. Don't give up. It's not about the diagnosis. The diagnosis is there for medical. If your child needs help with, let's say, seizures, my son has no immune system. But it's also, the medical community doesn't talk that much about the movement. They look at equipment-based sustainability, where we're here about trying to find optimal movement, so maybe the equipment doesn't have to be part of the picture.
And for me, that's huge as well. It's almost like I'm finding myself saying to parents that a lot of the traditional approach is it's almost like it's a maintenance rather than looking at some sort of solution. And the lack of movement, again, we come back to the cognitive problems that's then we're going to have, because all right, they've got CP, they've had a brain injury, but they might have genetic conditions. There's a range of different causes that can, like we said, can affect your movement. But then if a child's not given opportunity to move, then we're not giving the feedback to the brain. We're not creating the networks in the brain. We're not strengthening the neurons that are getting down. It's hand in hand. There's so much research out there that we're linked to talking about the impact of movement and exercise on BDNF and IGF-1, that things that are brain growth factors that the brain requires to grow. Movement's essential to that. And a child doesn't, people might think this is a bit of a strange concept, but a child doesn't use their muscles to move. They use weight transfer to move. Like babies aren't born with defined muscles. It's their movement. It comes from weight transfer, and through that weight transfer, they create the neurons and the networks with the brain, and it's only through then using their movements that our muscles that get the signal from the brain that also comes via fascia and tendons and ligaments before it even hits muscles and enables movement to occur. So it's really more than looking at it from that perspective. It's we've got to look at the role that movement plays in rather than just being okay, CP, let's just maintain them, let's just think about the posture, let's think about moving them. And I mean, Michelle sent a fantastic video to me that I think you're going to put out there in the Greater Ether soon, aren't you? You're talking about balance and skeletal muscles and responses, and that ability to push away and respond to things. And you're saying about how that kind of like that fall and we should be able to push against the wall rather than the wall just catching us. And a lot of therapies look at, okay, can we just maintain sitting up? Can we just maintain standing? Right. Well, that's great. That your milestone is to sit up or to stand, but that can't be the end goal, because then you're just stuck in that position. We need to be able to weight transfer, to be able to come in and out of positions, to be able to move and to get about and have an element of independence in our life.
Yeah, I mean, independence means getting in and out of the position. So I can be emotionally upset, and one of the things I'd like to cover is sort of a topic of the hour, which is the Princess of Wales having cancer, and but emotionally, we can talk about emotions and all that, but it's all movement. If you can't get in and out of the position, you panic. You panic. But to me, that's cerebral palsy. To me, that's being just emotionally drained. The intelligent mind, and I'm not saying that people with cerebral palsy intelligent. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the way that the brain, the body can figure out how to get in and out of things is through movement. Like say if there was a car crash or if I was coming here and there was a deviations, you know what I mean? Oh, but I can go this way, I can go this way, I can reschedule. We go through different ways of getting out of it. And then lots of times, let's say with a diagnosis such as cancer, cancer is a really rough diagnosis because of the emotional overload of fear paralysis. And it takes your breath away. And if you take the breath away, then all the movements are affected without proper breath. And really we talk about it all the time, stand up for your beliefs, turning green with envy. All of our emotions really have movement around them, but nobody looks to change the movement or change the way that we're going in and out of the situation to change again, our cognitive processing for emotions and more higher levels of learning. And so if your child feels again stuck in a classroom, or dyslexia is a reading disorder, but again, it's the movement of the eyes, it's the movement of the body and how they read books, and can they maintain convergence on the page, but then look at the teacher and look at Johnny and go around the room and then come back to the book. Oh, where was I? These all are factors of movement. So some are so minute, but they really can go places and stay with us. And what people call as emotional baggage really is movement. You didn't learn how to move in and out of the situation properly during that. You can call it fear, stress, and all those kind of put names on them. Again, diagnoses, but did you deal with it?
And I think that that's so important because there's so many people that we see, and particularly like a lot of children, a lot of kids, the babies that we see that do have issues, and they come in, and the system is so stressed. They're so frustrated. They don't understand how they move. And one of the big principles with movement lesson is looking at calming the system down, because you're not going to be able to move effectively if you've got a stress system. And like that goes into exactly what you're talking about there, Michelle, in terms of the emotional factors. Just have a think about when you've gone to sit that important exam, and think about the way that you held your body and how tense you might have been, or you try to go compare your actual driving test to the way that
Or
you were
held your breath
driving.
because you were so
Yeah,
panicked.
you can't move effectively for that. Now, if we go back to the Princess of Wales and what she's gone through, it's almost like it's heightened given the media publicity. And I mean, for me personally, I feel that somebody, it says that released a statement that they're in hospital for an operation. They need to be left alone. Just let them recover, let them get the rehab, let them have the emotional support that they need. Obviously, she's then have to come out and make other statements. She's been criticized for different pictures. She's then had to have a conversation with the children that she probably is the last conversation you really want to be having, to sort of say that, and then to come out and not only to admit it to your family, but to then have to tell the whole world and the population the stress that's being put on her body. It'd be no surprise that she would have issues potentially with her movement as a result. Now, that's exactly the same. I suppose anybody else who's got that cancer diagnosis will go through the same emotive issues and suddenly suffer with their movement. But it's almost like it's really heightened in her situation, isn't it? And not only the emotional factors that the diagnosis like cancer can provide, but I know, and it's something that you've already touched on already in this podcast, how you've already sort of like picked up at somebody who had a brain tumor. You can feel that cancer, right?
Yeah, I can. If cancer has a weight to it. Cancer acts as a mass. So explaining what mass means, my phone is a mass. No matter what I do, and there people going to like, yeah, lady, that's gravity. That this phone has no choice but to succumb to gravity. You and I don't. Now we're capable of succumbing to gravity,
That's
but
rotation again.
but again, the rotation, because the earth rotates, we have counter oppositional rotation, just like a plant. Your plant doesn't go to sleep at night. It might close, it's nocturnal, but it go waits for the sun again, but again, it's rotation. You can say the plant died because of lack of water, but the movement that the plant lost was rotation. Same with the flower when it's expended, it loses rotation. You really start to see it everywhere. But tumors, let's say, move still with the system. And tumors have a different form of life phase. The tumors are felt differently because they change the fluid dynamics. So tumors go under infection. So we were actually supposed to have a certain mucosal rate, mucus rate. That's why babies drool, right? Because their vestibular system is coating the inside of their nasal canals and ear canals and all that kind of thing. That's why they drool. Any person that has a drool issue has complications with the vestibular. It's one of the easiest indicators for vestibular. So when you have infection, let's say tumors and such, so you're slower. So your mucus is going to go at a certain rate, and then the infection is much slower, and depending on the type of infection. And that's where my hands got sensitive, because my son had Haemophilus influenza and staph. And he had that for 3 years. So my biggest complaint, first of all, with him was he falls like a drunk. And they're like, oh, babe, everybody falls down. No, they don't fall down forwards and backwards and over. Babies squat fall. Yes, if they trip over a shoe, they're going to fall. People are capable of falling like that. We generally don't. We fall straight down. So there's different types. Like if you go on the bunny hill skiing, if you're learning how to ski, what's the first thing they teach you how to do? Fall down. Falling is actually part of, if you want to be a master, you got to learn how to fall down emotionally, physically. That's what babies do. They go down, they go up. It's fun. But at some point, we like,
That
I
was
know that.
my first rugby session as a junior. We before we got taught how to tackle, we got taught how to fall down and relax. That was
Yeah.
like, actually like session number one. Wasn't don't catch a rugby ball. It's like you're going to get tackled, so learn to fall down.
Right. So cancer, though, wants to fall. Cancer is a mass. They call it a mass for a reason, and it does not have rotation. It does not play well. That's the mean kid on the playground. Doesn't play well with others. So especially cancer in the blood, it'll knock around the red blood cells, and they can't do their job because they can't rotate, because they're just getting batted around. It's like being in dodgeball and you're trying to say I'm done, and it's like they're like, nope, you're not done yet. Stay in. And so I can't tell what type of cancer it is, but I can feel that heaviness. I'll feel heaviness of the area. Same thing with infection, but infection, I can move through it. Cancer just wants to weight down in that area. So I've caught quite a few people when they don't even know that they came to me because they have a bad back, but they don't realize that they matter of fact, I have a very good client, and I told him that the dad hardly comes, the grandfather, and he's like, because he called me a witch, and he goes, okay, I got pain, you're the voodoo lady, fix me. And I said, Ed, I can fix you in 3 lessons. The fact that I haven't touched you, you're going to the doctor's right now, not tomorrow, right now. And the doctor actually said, I'm impressed you came in. He had the size of a softball, cancer, colon cancer. And he said, nobody comes in with this level of pain. They wait till they're in more pain. And then usually that's at that point, it's stage 4. We still got you stage 2. They actually just went in, took it out. I mean, he didn't require chemo. I'm not saying nobody's going to require chemo, because again, you have to watch what you say. But he goes, how did you know? And he's like, yeah, I know this lady. So,
The
uh,
witch lady.
yeah, the witch lady, and the white witch.
That's going to be a new moniker. The white movement witch.
Yeah, right. And so no, it's just I just appreciate movement. You might come to me with a diagnosis. Oh, and another thing, just to clarify what Scott says. Listen, guys, we've had people that literally stub their toe and go, what the heck? My back, my this, like they're like, I did nothing. I went to put my shirt on and I just threw my back out. And some people, yeah, I was in a 5-car pileup. I kind of have these scratches here, like no biggie. And you're like, what the heck? You should be like, all banged up. And so that's also the whole thing too with movement. People have to realize, don't whatever, if you can't do what you need to do to be a parent, to be a coworker, to be a boss, to be CEO, to be a kid, just take a moment out and find out why. And that's what people don't do. They go, but I didn't do anything and I feel like this. Nothing happened. Why am I doing this? We can't explain the why, but again, we can help with the solutions. And if you're ready to learn, guys, this is the place to do it.
And I think that's a great point to go back to what we've to reiterate what we said a little bit earlier as well. You know, we're not here to diagnose you. We're here to pick up on potential glitches within your movement. Um, we don't know what the cause of that is. That's when you need to take the advice and listen and go and seek further medical healthcare advice and professionals, because it might be blood tests that you require to be done that are going to give you that answer. Who knows? But that's where it's the movement's a glitch in your system. What causing it? If it's something that really you need to go and get checked out, then you know we're not here to diagnose and tell you everything's going to be all right when it's not. You need to get that diagnosis. You need to take on board what we're saying about factors that you're having. At the same time, like Michelle says, then you know it's better to go and get that early diagnosis and start early without a diagnosis to sort of say, well, if you can't do something now, even if you then go for them tests and they all come back negative, you've still got that glitch in your system. So, you know, take the advice then to get some lesson to improve your movement and get some sessions that look at improving your rotation, look at improving your weight transfer, your balance, your counterbalance, your vision, whatever it might be. And I suppose listing off some of those are more sessions and topics that we're going to look to cover, particularly the role of vision plays with movement as well. And I know you've said that you'd like to get into other topics as well, but you know we're going to do some analysis of some performers. We've got the Olympics coming up this year. Hopefully we'll get some analysis of some Olympic performers. As well as a wide range of other topics that we're gonna get to go into, and hope we're going to have a book club with Michelle reviewing her own book potentially, and talk us through that with your sort of like involvement with NASA and your work that you're looking to do there as well.
Yeah, we're going to be covering it all. But you guys have homework. What we want you to do now is everybody has a favorite team or somebody they want to watch. And if you don't have anybody to watch, pick on Travis Kelce, let's say. The reason, and I mentioned Tiger Wood, the reason these people are who they are is because of rotation. Turn the sound off the TV, turn the sound off whatever you're doing, and just watch their performance. The reason we're in awe of them is, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to start to see that spiral that they were able to do, the way that they could, what we say, fall down, or they can roll. I mean, I've seen footballers roll over another play. They don't even hit the ground, and they can hit the ground still running. Look at a monkey in a tree. You know, look at, and when two, also look at someone that you know is injured. I once did a soft analysis for Scott. What was it, Liverpool in Spain? You know, and Liverpool was having like such a high injury rate because, well, whoever's teaching them how to kick a ball they're falling backwards. You know what I mean? They just,
It was a comparison of Jordan Henderson and Lionel Messi. I know, again, some people say, well, you can't compare Henderson to Messi, but it's a great example of going back to that. You know, we should look at how elite performers move. You know, Lionel Messi's he should be the most kick person in the game, you know, but he bounces off players, he glides over them, he leaves them for dead without potential speed. He's got a real low injury rate throughout his career. You compare that to Liverpool's Jordan Henderson, and for what a career that Henderson's had, he's also had a lot of injuries. That you know he could have even achieved more than what he did. And I know that the sort of the great Scottish football manager Sir Alex Ferguson wrote in his autobiography that, and it was after we'd done some analysis of Henderson and Messi, and Michelle was like, well, look at the rotation, look at the pelvic strike. Henderson's lacking that compared to Messi. And one of the parents then, I was working on his son. He said, "Oh, have you read Alex Ferguson's autobiography? Because he talks about that." And I'm like, "What?" And Alex Ferguson said the reason that Man United didn't sign Jordan Henderson was because he ran from his knees and not from his hips. And you know, like it was the same concept that we were looking at in terms of he's lacking the rotation and he was lacking that pelvic strike, and as a result, he's then putting more stress on the lower leg, and as a result, he's having more injuries in the lower leg. We've done analysis recently, and again, this is up on the Movement Lesson Sports Academy YouTube page, looking at injuries in female footballers. It's such a high at the minute. It's the high rate of ACL injuries is phenomenal. And I look at it, and again, it's something that I can't not see now, is that every time that they're hitting the ball, there's a collapse of the hips. Now, whether that's due to the physiological differences between a male and a female hip structure, which is necessary for childbirthing, is that the cause of why women then to hit the ball? And again, you look at some fantastic goals, and I think back to the Women's World Cup last year, and Sam Kerr scored an unbelievable goal for Australia for the Matildas against England. As she hit the ball from about 25-30 yards out to the top corner, she collapsed, and a hip collapsed. And I'm looking at it thinking, and I said to my dad at the time, I said, you know, like that's an indicator that, you know, she's at higher risk of getting injured. And come January, she's had an ACL injury. It is again, you look at that, and, you know, go, like Michelle says, go away and look at it, see if you can see it. And again, as you're watching higher level performers, you're going to see more levels of rotation. And you look at somebody like, and again, we're talking a little bit about soccer, Cristiano Ronaldo, and we talk about his hang time. You know, like his hang time on his jumps, it isn't just because he's got sort of like springs in his boots. It's not because of his muscle tone. It's because of the level of rotation. He's got more rotation, which means that he's got more hang time. He's not been pulled down to the ground so quick. And another great example I know me and Michelle have both shared, and it might have come from Felipe, who's a big Dodgers fan, and that was Trey Turner when he was on the Dodgers. And you look at him, and he sort of slid over home plate, and he sort of spun and did a pirouette as he came back up, and it looked the most effortless thing in the world. But there's a reason that Trey Turner's so good at what he does, because of that level of rotation. And then it was a perfect example of just seeing how rotation just makes movement look so easy and effortless.
I wore this number 6 jersey because we're both Turner, and they traded him. But I also enjoy the Dodgers. But anyway, guys, that's your homework. Go look at rotation. Go look at the lack of rotation for those that seem off or whatever. People watching them all. Go do what you do. Turn on the TV, but turn off the volume. What you don't realize is how many people like us are in your face saying, "Oh, look at that, look at this, look at the," and they always look at, we judge sports versus on external processes. Very few sports analysis are done on internal processes, especially vision. And they play hand in hand. So it's not where the ball goes, guys. It's about the process that the person goes through to strike. And that's the movement that needs to be worked with. And like you said, from prehab to rehab. And we'll go from there. But I will say that you can find me on movementlesson.academy, and all over Facebook, Instagram, if you look up Movement Lesson. And Scott is Movement Lesson UK, because he's, if you can't tell by his accent, is in England.
Yeah. It's also why my room and my screen looks a lot darker than Michelle's, because it's currently 9:30 at night versus what time are you in Phoenix? 1:30?
Yep, 1:30 and or 1:30, as they say here. And
The
but
sun's
we'll be
probably
going
always
back
shining in Phoenix as well, and it's overcast and raining in the north of England. So
But enjoy it, guys. Go look, learn, ask your questions. That's why it's all about movement. We really wanted to take a step back and really look at movement in general and how it presents all over to all of us, because we have to move from the day we're born to the day we leave this earth. And it's kind of important. And if you want to age well, I just was bringing my dad in today for surgery, and that's the first thing I'm thinking. No, I'm not growing old like that. It's not happening. And I have empathy, guys, for people. People my age really are given shot pill surgery. Movement is just not even something to be discussed. You had a good life, now you're getting on to the next stage. Nope, my goal this year is to do a pull-up. And I just enjoy, like I said, I practice what it be. If you don't move it, you lose it.
That's great. I love that. You don't move it, you lose it. Brilliant. I also pick up on something that Michelle just said then about, ask the questions. And, I think she's referring more to ask yourself the questions. But one of the other things that we're going to be doing on the podcast is some AMLA episodes, AMLA. So ask movement lesson anything. So yeah, you have questions about movement lesson, please get in touch with us. There's lots of different ways you can get in touch. You can leave comments. If you, obviously, if you like the podcast, the best thing that you can do for us is to like it and subscribe to the channel. We're going to get the channel on YouTube. There's also the Movement Lesson on Facebook and on Instagram. There's Movement Lesson UK on Facebook and Instagram. Drop us a message, ask us anything. Just put us in the subject AMLA, that's AMLA, ask Movement Lesson anything. We're going to have episodes where we're going to come along and we're just going to address a load of them questions, and I'll be chief questioner of those questions, firing them at Michelle, and we'll try and answer as many questions as we possibly can. So if you do have questions, there's loads of resources. You got any issues with concerns about a child, about a parent, about someone young, old, a sports performer, a husband, a wife, please don't hesitate to get in touch and look up. There's a phenomenal amount of resources out there on Movement Lesson. So please do follow that and get in touch. And there's also the Movement Lesson parents Facebook group as well, Parents and Practitioners Facebook group that requires Michelle to give you access. But if you come along and request it, then again, there's a phenomenal support and community that's on there as well.
And we travel the world, so we go around the world to do it. So it's not like we're here and just alone in a podcast. So that being said, it was great, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks very much. We'll see you again.